When the curtain falls, what's the last thing someone says? In those final moments, what really separates a genius from a villain? Do the world's greatest minds find peace or terror? The last words they speak offer a raw, unfiltered glimpse into their true character. They can be poetic, haunting, and sometimes surprisingly human. Today, we're comparing the final words of geniuses and villains to see what they reveal about who they really were. First up, a pair defined by creation versus destruction. One man reshaped our world with technology, the other with terror. We'll start with Steve Jobs, the visionary co-founder of Apple. After a long battle with pancreatic cancer, he passed away in October 2011, surrounded by his family. His sister, Mona Simpson, described his final moments. He looked at his wife and his children, and then seemed to look right past them as if he saw something more. His last words were simple, repeated 3 times with what she described as a sense of astonishment. "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow." For a man who spent his life creating things meant to inspire awe, it seems fitting his own end was met with wonder, not fear. It suggests a mind that stayed curious right up to the very threshold of death. Now let's contrast that with one of history's most monstrous figures, Adolf Hitler. As Allied forces closed in on Berlin in April 1945, Hitler was trapped in his bunker. He knew it was over. Unlike Jobs, surrounded by family, Hitler was surrounded by the ruins of his own hateful ambition. His last documented act was to dictate his political testament, a final, bitter rant blaming everyone but himself for the war. While his exact last words weren't recorded, his pilot recalled that Hitler's final hours were spent in paranoid resignation, bidding farewell to his staff and convinced he had been betrayed. There was no, "oh wow," no sense of wonder, just the bitter, suffocating end of a path of destruction, marked by blame and paranoia. The visionary saw something amazing. The tyrant saw only his own ruin. Next, we move from technology and tyranny to the world of words and consequences. On one side, a reclusive poet whose words are immortal. On the other, a condemned man whose final words became a protest. Emily Dickinson is one of America's most celebrated poets, a genius who spent most of her life in seclusion, exploring life and death with breathtaking originality. As her health failed in the spring of 1886, it is said that she uttered a final phrase that was as enigmatic as her life's work. "I must go in, for the fog is rising." Whether these were her literal last words is debated, but they perfectly capture her essence. For a poet who found deep meaning in nature, describing death as a rising fog is a beautiful fitting end, a final, perfect metaphor from a master of the craft. It was calm, observant, and uniquely her. In stark contrast, consider the final words of John Spenkelink. A drifter convicted of murder, he was the first person executed in Florida against his will after the U.S. Supreme Court reinstated the death penalty. His case was a flashpoint in the debate over capital punishment. On May 25, 1979, as he was strapped into the electric chair, he didn't offer an apology. Instead, he delivered a blistering critique of the system that was about to kill him. Capital punishment. Them without the capital get the punishment. There's no gentle fog here. Spenkelink's words are a defiant political statement. They're sharp, angry, and aimed squarely at a system he saw as unjust. While Dickinson's words were a private reflection, Spenkelink's were a public protest. The poet found a metaphor. The condemned found a final unforgettable accusation. Our third pair features 2 men who held immense power, but in vastly different ways. One, a celebrated statesman who led his country through its darkest hour. The other, a brutal dictator who ruled with an iron fist. Winston Churchill, the prime minister who rallied Great Britain during World War II, was a figure of legendary energy. He lived a long, massive life. But by the age of 90, after a lifetime of incredible achievement, a deep weariness had apparently set in. After suffering a severe stroke, his last recorded words before slipping into a coma were surprisingly simple. "I'm bored with it all." For such a monumental figure, these words are profoundly human. They reveal a man who was simply tired after a long, hard journey. No grand pronouncements, just the quiet surrender of a man who had seen and done it all. Now contrast that with the final moments of Saddam Hussein. After being captured, tried, and sentenced to death, the former Iraqi dictator was led to the gallows in December 2006. He refused a hood, wanting to face his end. As his executioners taunted him, Hussein didn't respond with boredom or weariness. He began reciting the Shahada, the Islamic declaration of faith, turning his execution into a final performance. I bear witness that there is no God but God, and I bear witness that Muhammad. As the trapdoor opened, his final act was one of defiant piety. Unlike Churchill's quiet resignation, Hussein's last moments were a calculated attempt to cast himself as a martyr and control his own narrative, even in death. These comparisons are pretty powerful, right? They offer a unique window into these famous and infamous lives. If you're finding this as fascinating as we are, take a second to like this video and subscribe. And definitely hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next dive into history's most compelling stories. Now back to our final pairings. From the political stage, we turn to the stage of performance itself. Here we have a musical icon whose final message was one of simple wisdom, and a Roman emperor whose last words dripped with vanity. Bob Marley, the global reggae icon, spread messages of peace, love, and justice. But at just 36, he was dying from cancer. As he lay in a hospital, he turned to his son, Ziggy, and shared a piece of wisdom that has echoed ever since. His final words were a simple, poignant truth. Money can't buy life. This statement is the essence of Bob Marley. Despite all his fame and wealth, he faced the one thing money couldn't fix. His last words weren't about his legacy or his music, but a final, humble teaching, a reminder of what really matters. Now let's travel back almost 2,000 years to a very different kind of performer, the Roman Emperor Nero. Known for his tyranny and extravagance, Nero also fancied himself a great artist. When a rebellion rose up and he was forced to flee, he prepared to take his own life. But even then, his main concern was his own artistic genius. As he died, he reportedly lamented, "Qualis artifex perio," or "What an artist dies in me." The contrast is staggering. Marley's final thought was a selfless lesson about life's true value. Nero's was a breathtakingly arrogant complaint about the loss of his own talent. One man found humility in death, the other found only self-pity, convinced that the world's greatest loss was himself. Finally, we have two figures who found a moment of unexpected dark humor in the face of death. One, a Hollywood tough guy known for his cynical wit. The other, a queen facing the guillotine. Humphrey Bogart, the legendary star of Casablanca, was the epitome of cool. A heavy smoker and drinker, his lifestyle eventually caught up with him. The legend goes that on his deathbed, he delivered one last classic self-deprecating quip. "I should have never switched from scotch to martinis." It's a great line, but it's probably not true. His wife, Lauren Bacall, said his actual last words were spoken quietly to her as she left to pick up their children from school. "Goodbye, kid. Hurry back." The martini joke is the one that stuck, though, because it just feels so Bogart. It shows a man facing the end with the same dry wit that made him a star. For a different kind of dark humor, let's look at Marie Antoinette, the last queen of France. Vilified as a symbol of royal excess, she was led to the guillotine in October 1793. As she climbed the steps to her own execution, in front of a jeering crowd, she accidentally stepped on the foot of her executioner. Her reaction wasn't terror or defiance, but pure reflexive politeness. "Pardon me, sir. I did not mean to do it." In the most terrifying moment imaginable, her instincts were those of a queen. An absurdly conventional apology that, in a flash, revealed her humanity. Both Bogart and Antoinette found an unexpected final note. One, a performance of wit. The other, an accident of etiquette. From the wonder of Steve Jobs to the vanity of Nero. From Emily Dickinson's poetic acceptance to John Spenkelink's defiant protest. Final words show us that in the end, some find peace, some find defiance, and some find only the wreckage of their own making. They're more than just historical trivia. They're the final brushstroke on the portrait of a life. And they prove that whether a life is spent creating or destroying, its final moments often tell the truest story. What do you think? Which of these final words hit you the hardest? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more. Thanks for watching.